Welcome back, guys. If you remember where I left off in the last video, I was ready to install the upper valve train components. I've got everything laid out on the bench here: push rods, rocker arms, oil supply tube, valve cover. You already know what's going on with all these. I've covered this stuff pretty well in prior videos up to this point. So let's continue on with reassembly. Push rods just drop right in. I just put a little bit of oil on the ends rather than assembly grease. I like the oil on there better. It makes setting the valve clearance a little bit easier when you don't have that sticky grease binding things up. Get the rockers set on. And I'll just tighten the nuts down tight enough to provide enough clamping pressure on the rocker shaft to make it so I can't turn it at all. And that's really all the tighter these need to go. And I really don't want to over tighten anything and cause the same kind of breakage on these pedestals like I've had to repair already. Once I get the tension about right on all the pedestals, I'll just run the jam nuts down and lock everything in place. And then to finish up, I'll put the oil supply tube on. The end with the fitting has a small compression ferrule that seals against the top of the standpipe, and then the other end of the tube just presses in the hole in the top of the rocker shaft. So it's almost like this little feed line was a bit of an afterthought. Must have worked just fine though, because none of the components up here showed any signs of ever having suffered from lack of lubrication. I'll just work my way through and set all the valve clearances now. The manual specifies 10 thousandths for the intakes and 18 thousandths for the exhaust on a hot engine. So I'll get everything close enough to run right now, do the final adjustment after it's going. So everything adjusted up really well, and this thing spins over nice and smooth. It's pumping air like it should. Really happy with how it all looks. Now I'll cap it all off with the valve cover, which looks identical to the production 445 piece. Okay guys, now I'm at the point where I'm ready to seal up the crankcase, but I want to spend a few minutes talking about the engine side cover here. This is another 10X piece, 10X5650, and it's a very heavy cast iron piece. Probably one of the first things you'll notice is this heavy steel patch that's been welded on here. I'm going to do some speculating on how that got there, but first I want to refer back to one of the early black and white archive photos of this tractor from 1955. So here we are again looking at the January 1955 view of X231 when it was new, and paying attention to the side cover. It's very clear in this picture that in the area where that steel patch has been added to the side cover, it used to have this raised accessory drive mounting flange that was a cast-in feature of the cover itself. It looks a lot like the production diesel 445 side covers where the diesel fuel injection pump would mount and be driven off of the cam gear on those machines. One can only speculate on X231 why this feature was a part of the side cover, being that this is a gasoline engine. Perhaps maybe they were thinking about possibly putting a live power hydraulic pump there, or possibly they did have a diesel prototype at the same time that utilized a side cover like this, so they just cast more than one because it would also fit on the gas engine. Really now, that's just speculation. As far as how or why that accessory drive mount got removed from X231, I really don't know, but we'll go back and look at the side cover again and just kind of examine it a little more closely. So to take another look at this patch, it's evident they expended a reasonable amount of time to get it contoured to the rest of the cast iron cover, and they also ground the welds down and tried to flush that out and finish it somewhat. Now a view of the back side of the cover, showing its heavy cast iron construction and also the underside of that steel patch. A couple of the old threaded mounting holes are still partially intact, and the area around where that original accessory drive flange was located shows some rather clean cuts, like it was intentionally removed and not just broken away. And now to compare the prototype 10X side cover with the production 10A equivalent off of the 445. This was off a gasoline engined tractor, obviously. The first thing you'll notice is this is a stamped steel, whereas the prototype one is heavy cast. The second thing you'll notice, this bump out that surrounds the camshaft gear closely resembles what this patch ended up making the prototype cover to be shaped like. Also, the welds, the type of weld and the color of the weld that was used in this patch is consistent with some of the other work that's been done on this cover. Like they added a little raised boss right here to go next to this one that was already cast in. All those similarities are kind of what makes me think Minneapolis-Moline did this, made this modification, and it wasn't just some sort of a patch that was put over an area where maybe that accessory drive was accidentally broken away. And a couple other major differences between these two covers. The 10A production piece had this area where the tachometer drive was mounted and drove off the camshaft, and the 10X cover did not even have a provision for that. Another difference is the location of the dipstick. This one's way back in the corner, whereas the prototype piece has it a little bit farther forward. The last main difference is bolt pattern. These two covers could not be interchanged with one another, even though they are similar in size, because all the mounting locations for the bolts and the studs on the prototype block don't even match where the holes ended up being on the production piece. So that's really all the talking I wanted to do on this piece. If you have your own theory on how this patch got here, please share it in the comments down below. In the meantime, I'm going to start cleaning this up and get it ready for installation. Okay, so I got the cover clean. Everything's ready to go there. New gasket made for it, and all the nuts and lock washers ready to go as well. And over here at the engine block, 17 new studs installed, ready for the side cover to go on. Okay, the engine is pretty well sealed up. The last detail I had to address was routing this new oil supply line that carries lubrication to the distributor and oil pump drive shaft on the front of the engine. If you'll remember, the old copper line had been bent in quite a few places and had a little bit of a soldered patch job put on it. When I mocked up the generator mount to get all my clearances right, I just kind of set this up and compared it, and it was evident that this line very likely rubbed on the generator mount and got a hole in it at one time, and that's why that patch was put on. So it was just easier to make an all new copper line. And again, I went back to the archive photo, and I doubt you'll be able to pick up the detail close enough to really see much of that line in here, but I was able to see the portions of it anyway that were visible. I was able to see where the bends were, kind of how it was routed, and I replicated everything as closely as I could according to what was in that photo. So that turned out pretty well, I think. Okay guys, I'm going to wrap the video up right here. Before I put any other parts on this engine, I'm going to get a good coat of primer covering everything to protect these clean bare metal surfaces. So be on the lookout for that in the next installment coming up in a few days. And I know it's been a long road getting to this point. You've sat through a lot of boring reconditioning work, but we were able to finally get enough assembly done where the bulk of the engine is now back together. Everything here is in pretty good condition, and I'm really pleased with how it's been coming together up to this point. So as always guys, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Feel free to leave comments down below, and I hope to see you back next time.